There you go. Hi, y'all. So a quick intro into why we're here. So for this quarter, we're continuing to use Ally for OKR tracking. So it's a tool that we've been using for a while now. And there's a couple of groups that are switching to using GitLab for OKR tracking, but that's completely optional. However, next quarter, we want to switch back to GitLab solely for tracking OKRs. As part of that, we're building new functionality that will help us build and track OKRs easier than before. When we did this previously, we're trying to use epics and issues. There were some gaps in functionality. So what we're doing is that we're creating new work items using our work items framework. So they're going to be more similar to what are tasks today than what are issues and epics. And we're going to be building new functionality to basically try to bridge the gap. The biggest constraint that we have is that January is when we want to basically start the process. So we're trying to figure out what's a reasonable MVC that will give us enough functionality where it's possible to track OKRs and build the rest along the way. So we're here because we would like your feedback, Max and Farnoosh, as like the OKR resident experts on the process and the tooling. Does that make sense?
It sure does.
Okay. So there's an epic that is linked here that has a lot of detail about what we're building, and that's going to be the source of truth. So I would appreciate if y'all did a review of that, and then if you had questions, you can kind of post on there. But there are specific things that I listed here that I wanted to get your feedback on whether you think that's like a hard stop or amber or it's fine, of things that will not make it into the January timeframe. The first one being related issues and epics. What we were proposing for the MVC was that users would basically have a score that they would set manually. So like the OKR score, and we would not calculate that based on issues completion. How do you think that's going to be like a hard stop?
So let me just make sure I understand, Melissa. So for the January MVC, what you're saying is if I create an epic for one of the product leadership team KRs, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I have my related issues. Maybe some of them are owned by product design, some of them are owned by my EM. And then within those issues, they're going to be like attaching their MRs, right? Or their tasks or what have you. You're saying that there's just going to be, there will be no automated scoring, but there will be a way to like manually.
Yeah, you would enter a number, right? So in your scenario, what you would need to do, and I think this would be one of those that would be there before March, so to say. So somewhere along the quarter, you'd be able to associate that epic and basically derive the score from that. Or like link the issues directly to your objective and derive the score from that. But between then, you would say like, it's 60% done or 30% done, and you would enter that number.
I think as long as the PM, since they're going to be leading their quad and product groups efforts, right, and they'll have a good sense of what they need to have, what will be hopefully going on within their epics and issues and the tasks and MRs associated. I think that's totally, we can do with that on the product side, right? If I'm understanding correctly.
Yeah, and then
as long as you can manually enter it.
Yes, a score would be manually entered, and it would be rolled up automatically within the OKR chain. Yeah. It's just that calculating that score based on issues, relationships wouldn't happen in the first version.
Right. So if I basically had an epic with 5 issues in them, would I go in there and manually put different percentages on the different issues and that would roll into the epic, or that wouldn't either?
So they wouldn't be epics and issues. This would be basically you would create an objective and a key result. And then on the key result, basically you would enter the percent complete. And if you wanted to create epics and issues that are related to that OKR, you wouldn't have a way to link them in the first version.
Sorry, I'm causing confusion because I'm referring to like the work objects as epics and issues, but they're actually like, it's like same, but different. I get, so just, yes, I'm following you. I meant to say like, I'll have my KR objects, I'll be able to put percentages on those, and that will actually roll into the objective.
That's correct.
Well, what you're saying is we can't auto calculate that based on.
We can't auto calculate it
That to the
based on GitLab issues. Like you can't, like with the automation that we created today for Ally.
Totally following now. Yes, I
Okay.
think we can make do.
Awesome. The other thing that would not be there off the gate would be health status. So that's the yellow, red, green indicator, right? You would have a % complete, but we wouldn't have a way to translate that into that status, so to say. Okay. Awesome. One that is not here, but I wanted to get a temperature check on is discussions. Have y'all found that discussions are used a lot in Ally?
Yeah, my team uses discussions for check-ins. So when you check in, rev up the percentages, we add comments on what has changed since the last time.
Okay.
I similar to Mac, somewhat similar to Mac. What I was going to say is product team didn't really use the discussion and comment features in Ally very much because we opted to do so in our planning issues, but we definitely need discussion and commenting feature. That it just wasn't easy for us to do it in Ally, and that's the only reason we didn't use it in Ally.
Okay.
And that's actually specifically why we used epics and issues instead to do our planning, because we could have discussions and threads.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, and
That
the
makes sense.
discussions in Ally doesn't link back to the product automatically. So having it natively rendered in GitLab would be a win.
Okay, understood. So it's like discussions weren't used that much, but it was because they were harder to use. But if it was in GitLab and it was similar to the GitLab experience, you feel like it would be very valuable.
I think so.
Need it. Yeah.
Go ahead,
Sorry,
Pranesh.
go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead.
Would you render the issue name? So in the discussions, if we paste an issue link to GitLab, do you get the name rendering instead of just gitlab.com/org/group/issue number? Would it render the issue name?
Yeah, it would be the same experience as commenting on issues today. Except...
That's great. I think that's a win.
Awesome.
That's exactly what we want, Melissa. And I'm about to ask you a question. Is that an easy lift to just include out the gate in the MVC? Because I think it's going to be that might be table stakes, right? To use OKRs for product team. If we can't, we're all verbose and we love to discuss.
So let me ask you this, because there's two kind of like similar features that because we're also thinking about sequencing for this, right? We also have system notes as something that we need to build, right? What that captures like when things change. As far as sequencing goes, which one would you say is more important, system notes or discussions?
The way we currently do OKRs, I think discussions are more important for being able to actually align on the objectives and key results across the PM team, especially now that it's inclusive of getting feedback from the quad from the get-go. It's going to be pretty tough to, so like, for example, you saw how I had David create the draft OKR issue and how I invited everyone in to discuss. And you saw in previous quarters, even though it was a little hairy, there was a lot of discussion that would happen. I think that would be more valuable, in my opinion, than the system notes, because I don't know how we would arrive at alignment without the opportunity to discuss. That means that we would then have to create epics and issues to have discussions to put things in OKR objects, the same way we were doing with Ally, which is not something that's going to be an easy.
Yeah, to be clear, I think both are feasible, but I'm also thinking about sequencing so that we get the most valuable things out first.
Understood. What does Mech think? For me, it's the discussion that more so than system notes that I would prioritize.
So my memory is failing me. Can someone please educate me what the system notes store?
It's what changes. So if you go through to the issue and you see like Max changed the description, Melissa changed the status, like
historical
audit trail.
Historical. Yeah, I don't think audit trail is as important as discussions.
Revision history, basically.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
So are we in agreement, Mech, that we would take discussion and commenting threads and all that stuff over for revision history, so to speak?
Yep. And emojis in discussions. I think a lot of
Emojis.
well, a lot of folks may use that to score, like the green
Yeah.
checkbox or like
Yes.
yellow or red on fire. So that's an
On
output.
fire.
What my OKRs are never on fire, Mech. I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, some teams I have are overly ambitious, so they could be 40% towards the end of quarter. Diversity, right? Make sure we encapsulate all the status.
My goal when we launch this MVC is going to be go into all of Mech's OKRs.
Put it on
and
fire.
Fire.
Well, fire can mean a lot of different things though, but I won't get into that.
Yeah, maybe you're just doing super well on the
Yeah.
other hand. I'm more of a red exclamation point type of guy, but to each their own.
All right, so we'll have something more visual for you to see and like basically look at what's going to be there, but please I'm going to ask you to use your imagination. So imagine within GitLab you can where you go just like you go to create an issue, right? Somewhere you can click and you say create objective, create KR. You can link them. You would see those in a list format, similar how you see the issues list today, like a flat list. You can filter by type, owner, milestone. That's the kind of view that would be available. And then clicking into each, and then when you click on an objective, similar to how you have epics today, you would see the child items underneath. What would be later in the year is a tree view, like what you have today, where you can see multiple objectives side by side and expand them down the chain. And one important differentiator also is that for an MVC, we're talking about doing this within a single group project, in GitLab. So we would create a project for OKRs and everyone's OKRs would be in there. And we would use labels as the way to segment. The ability to kind of create more of a structure where we have groups and subgroups and projects for this would come later. So I am curious, I'll stop here to get your reactions on that.
I'm trying to visualize and make sure I understand how that would work at a high level. So in this initial MVC, I'm Sid and I've got my CEO objectives, and then I'm David and I've got my annual product investment themes, and a lot of times I'll adopt one of the CEO objectives. So if I want to be able to somehow kind of be able to just kind of see how that's cascading down, where would my entry point be so that I can see where the product OKRs are actually feeding into David's, and then which of David's are feeding into Sid's? I'm not quite following that.
Yeah. So as long as it's all connected, it would be similar to how issues and epics work today, right? Where it's like, if it's all connected. So if you go all the way to the top to Sid's view, you could kind of drill down, right? And see all the way down the chain. So if you wanted to see like the full picture, that's what you would need to do. You would basically find the issues where Sid is assigned, I'm making this confusing now. Find the objectives where Sid is assigned, that's his, right? And then drill down. You would find the objectives where David's assigned, and then those are his. In the future, we definitely would want to create like different containers, but for an MVC, it would all be within the same project. And owners and labels would be the main way to dissect.
I think it's fine. I think that's how we used issues as OKRs 2 years ago. It was just, everybody was using the handbook project for the OKRs.
Okay.
I understand now. Just want to make sure I'm cool.
If folks wanted to be close together, quickly create your OKRs so they are clumped together, 3 of them in the list. One of the tricks we did.
What do you mean by that?
So when you create your OKRs, just quickly create yours in a row. So when you it's together.
Like go in at 8 p.m. when no one's online. Well, no, there's always someone online. But it's
Yeah,
like,
we'll
what if
just
somebody creates one right in between yours? Then it's like forever ruined.
it's still okay. It's like don't create one today and create another tomorrow. You'd be going through 2 pages, like where are all my 3 OKRs?
That's funny.
That sounds great.
Okay. The other one that would be basically not there until later is the Slack integration. Right. So you know how we get those reminders that say, like, go update your OKRs, or like, here's your OKRs, like that nice ally integration. That wouldn't be there for an MVC. And I just wanted to know what you guys thought.
I would say that's like super low on my priority list.
Agreed.
Super low. I put all sorts of stuff before that.
Okay.
And focus on post manually. As long as it unfurls nicely and you post it in Slack, it shows the name of the OKR and percentages. I think we're good.
I'll have to double check that. Okay.
Yeah, I think just thinking out loud, like I'm perfectly happy setting up, audit like scheduled Slack reminders across various channels.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying? So like,
Yes.
since development and quality and product are going to be very aligned on our OKRs, I can totally set up reminders across the relevant channels in advance with like links, or even not links, right? People just, hey, y'all, it's time,
Mm-hmm.
figure that part out. So I would say that's a super low priority for now. And it sounds like Mac agrees.
Okay. Mac, you had a question on 3.
Yeah, B, it was answered,
Mhm.
correct?
Yes.
Would we have the n-to-1 multiple linking parent-child objects, or is it only 1-to-1?
I'll have to double check on that, but I know the multi-parenting is high on your priority list, right?
I think the quads work well together. So if quality does something that moves the needle on, say, one of Justin's or David's OKR, we'll be able to cross-link them. That was something that the shared OKR aspect was brought up a few times.
Yeah, let me follow up, because we did discuss this, but I don't remember, honestly, like we've been, as you can imagine, in a flurry of conversations about scope and what's in and what's not. So let me double check on this. I don't have an idea of like how difficult it is to do it one way or another. So I'll circle back.
Well, as long as is there a parent-child concept here?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so as long as the child can link to multiple parents and you calculate the status dynamically, I think that's fine. Also, I think this is not top priority. This can be second or third iteration.
Okay.
Just a clarification question, if a child links to multiple parents, when we get to the weighting roll up, that might get a little tricky, right? I think we should think through that a little bit more.
Yeah.
Yeah, the score of each parent will be different. Depends. Like if equality is looking at the test within like 5 stages and we score ourselves on that, but then there's one of those 2 stages that we need to help move the needle to be best in class. Those KRs maybe want to be linked to the product KRs, and then we drive the status that way too.
Yeah, I'm just thinking that maybe your use case fits better for related and not necessarily multiple parents.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like maybe one group, their work it is related to, but as a blocker, but doesn't roll up to the final. I don't know. Just something I think we need to think about before we try to put that in MVC1.
Yeah, I can link you to an example, Amanda, that because I had the same question, and Mac showed me a specific example and that helped me understand it. So I can link you to that. But I think if it's not a hard requirement at this point, because we're so tight on timeline, like unless it's a really, really hard requirement, it's probably not going to be in iteration 1. So this sounds like something we can wait on for iteration 2 and like really think about how the math's going to work, because it might get a little hairy. Okay, so for next steps, I would love if y'all could spend a little bit of time just reviewing that epic that I linked. I might have missed a few points that maybe are important to you as far as like, are they in the MVC or not? And if there's something that you don't see in there that is very important to you, let me know. And then we will have a mock-up to share with y'all, likely like early next week. So I'll share that with you then, and you can tell me like if there's something missing that's really important that would basically break your workflows or somebody's workflow that you know, and you can also tell me who else should look at this to give us feedback.
That sounds good, Melissa. So the epic that I'm looking at from the agenda link is OKR's minimum maturity MVC
Yes.
for GitLab adoption with the high level bullet points. And then you want us to also look at linked child issues and epics, I assume, as well as the linked any, actually, no, there's nothing else that's linked. There's some items that are blocking it, but really you're just asking us to then look at as well, I'm assuming, the create new work item types and progress percent widget and stuff.
I'll actually change my link, and I think you should actually look at the parent item,
Okay.
because that one has, and I'll change it now, because that one has like a more complete picture of like, here's what's minimal, here's what's next iteration.
Precisely what I was asking. Thank you. Because I feel
Mhm.
like there wasn't much for me to react to in the original one I was looking at.
Yeah, and that way you can look at that, and like if you see something in later phases that looks like something
Perfect.
that would be needed earlier, you can tell me.
Yes, this one is perfect. So I'm going to review this and I'm going to ask PLT to review it as well.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Yeah. And it looks like Justin's already in there, but like a year ago. So he needs
Yeah,
to.
yeah, no, he created it originally and I've like chopped it up and changed it all kinds of ways. So,
Okay, this is great. Will do.
all right, well, that's all I had. Thank you all. And yeah, definitely, if there's anything that you think of later, just ping me on Slack or find me some other way.
Thank you, Melissa. I'm really excited we're doing this.
I am too.
Everyone's excited to get back in GitLab. So it's great.
You know, we like to just be in GitLab. We don't know how to be other places.
Yeah, it's great. Why be anywhere else?
We don't, why would we? I mean, what's the point of that, right? This is great and exciting. And thank you for looping us in to collect feedback.
Yeah, of course. Thank you, Ryan, for organizing.
Bye.
Bye.